This DVMax training session will cover the various components of a general information screen for a client within DVMax. Before you is such a client general information screen. Notice at the top there is a location to enter in two separate names to be associated with this record. These two names can represent a husband and wife or any two individuals who will share responsibility for the animals listed at the bottom left of the screen. This might represent two individuals who do not share the same last name, as is the case here. However, when searches are performed for records, both of these last names will be considered equally. The next field we come to is the street address. One can simply type in the street address as is appropriate. Should there be need for a suite number or apartment number, that may be typed on a separate line. If there is no need for a suite number or apartment number, simply leave the second line blank. The next field we come to is the city, followed by the state, followed by the zip code. These can be typed in appropriately. However, keep in mind that as you enter this information for each individual client and then store it by clicking OK, DVMax begins to memorize the combination of city, state, and zip code. That means that if indeed DVMax has already memorized the combination of this city, state, and zip code, we can simply enter in the zip code when we hit the city field, and by simply clicking the tab button, DVMax will complete the rest of those fields since it has already memorized that that zip code is associated with this city and this state. This is very useful after you've entered a series of clients and DVMax has memorized numerous zip code, city, and state combinations. Telephone numbers may be entered with the area code followed by the 7-digit telephone number. By doing so, DVMax can in fact insert the hyphens appropriately upon your clicking the tab button. DVMax, in other words, will capitalize and insert hyphens in the appropriate location simply by moving to the next field through the use of the tab button. Notice there's also a location for extension information for each of the telephone numbers. In this case, a fax can be identified, a cell phone number can be identified, or any other information may be stored in the extension information field. Each client can have associated with it two separate user-definable fields. In this particular data file, item 1 is a field that has not received any special label. However, item 2 has received a special label of the word occupation, and in fact is used in this data file to monitor the occupation of the client. This can be especially useful before walking into an exam room and explaining orthopedic surgery to a board-certified orthopedic surgeon. The next field down represents the email address for this particular client. This can be especially useful when you wish to communicate with the client in a non-verbal manner. In other words, if you store the email address, simply clicking the icon to the right of that email address will launch your email application and indeed start a new email using the address entered onto the email address field. This can also be very useful if the client wishes to receive email reminders. And indeed, DVMax is capable of sending email reminders and will again use the address entered on the email address field. Should a client request that we do not send reminders, we can simply click the box that states "Do not send reminders." The information to the right of the client general information screen includes the file number. The file number represents a user-definable number that can be assigned to any particular client as an alternate means to search for this client. Should there be need to assign a file number, you can simply utilize the Client menu, select Set File Number, enter the number as applicable, and click OK. The second field down represents the ID number. DVMax will assign a unique ID number to every single client that is added to the data file. No two clients will ever share the same ID number. This is again a very good way to search for a client since only one number can be used for one client. Two different individuals can never receive the same ID number. The next field down represents the year-to-date spent for each individual client. Should your facility zero this field out every December 31st, indeed the quantity, the dollar amount shown to the right will represent the amount that this individual has spent at your facility since the close of the last year. If indeed your facility chooses not to zero this out on an annual basis, this dollar amount may indeed represent the total amount spent by this client at your facility since the inception of this client's use of your service. The next field down represents any balance that is currently owed by or owed to this client. Should this client owe you money, that dollar amount will be represented in this field. Should you owe them a credit balance, that will also be represented in this field, surrounded by parentheses. The next field down represents the very first visit of this client to your facility. The next field down represents the most recent activity by this client at your facility. This permits you to see when this client first became a client of your facility, as well as how long has this client been a client at your facility. It many times becomes of importance to know how this client found your facility or came to utilize your services. This is especially important for referral services. This client may have been referred by another clinician, in this case, Dr. James Babbitt. Information pertaining to Dr. James Babbitt may be accessed by clicking the icon to the right of Dr. James Babbitt's information, and this then brings up additional information that we might have on record pertaining to this doctor, including a telephone number and, in this case, a fax number. The bottom right of the screen is a note box. This note box is utilized for non-critical notes associated with this client record. Should there be something of critical nature to be applied to this client, it would be preferable to use an alert message. Alert messages may be added by accessing the client menu, dragging down to Set Alert Message, and then entering the message as necessary in the alert message box. Clicking OK will store that alert message with this client. As you can see, whenever there is an alert message associated with a client screen, it will pop up attached to the command palette at the top right. Should we wish to view the verbiage of that alert message, simply click on the red bar and the remainder of the information will pop up as you can see. Clicking OK simply retracts that information back into the command bar palette. To the bottom left of the screen will be listed all of the patients that are associated with this client record. They will be listed in alphabetical order. All of the animals that have reminders on record will be listed in black, assuming that those reminders are not yet due. All animals that have reminders on record that are overdue will be listed in red. Those animals that currently have no reminders on record will be listed in blue. This will continue to expand as one adds more and more animals. Animals who are indeed deceased will be listed at the bottom of the list in gray format and indeed will never have any reminders, since we don't want to send reminders to animals who are in fact deceased. Additional features that are available to us while viewing the Client General Information screen would include the ability to attach a memo, which is a time and date stamped message which will only pop up after a specified time and date for this particular client when the client record is accessed. To do so, simply choose the Client menu and click on Create a Memo. When the Create a Memo box comes up, we simply type in the information that we wish to pop up and then enter the date after which we need this information to occur. In this particular case, this message will pop up after 7/15 of 2008 at 10:27 in the evening. Should it become necessary to print multiple certificates for each of the animals listed at the lower left, for instance, spay certificates, neuter certificates, rabies certificates, etc., this may be accomplished by choosing the Patient menu, selecting Print Certificates. This will now bring up a list of all of the animals which are listed at the lower left of the client's screen. Adjacent to each of the animals, we can click what kind of certificate we wish for any of those animals. It is possible to click multiple certificates for an individual animal, and then when you click Print, each of those certificates for each of the animals indicated will come out in succession. When it becomes necessary to add a new patient to an existing client record, simply select from the Patients menu, Add New Patient. Or you can use the keyboard equivalent, in this case Control-N. On a Macintosh computer, this would be performed by choosing Apple N. This brings us to the addition of a new patient record.